Today I want to show you how I built this patio pond with a natural stone waterfall. I've been wanting to build one of these for a while now, but had too many other projects going on. I finally just made the time and did it. Let's go through this build step by step, and by the end, maybe you will want to build one of these for yourself. This plastic flower pot that I've selected did have drainage holes in the bottom, which I sealed up using 100% silicone and patches of scrap plastic, which were siliconed over the holes. After a few days of curing, I started making the foundation for the stone waterfall. I chose a 10-inch pond basket, which I cut in half and made a flat backing for using other pieces of rigid plastic that I had laying around, and I zip tied them all together. Then I made some legs and a brace using PVC pipe, also zip tied to the basket. The ends of the brace were cut at an angle to match the contour of the planter wall. Holes were drilled in the planter rim and then secured the basket to the wall, again using zip ties. Now the platform for the stones needs to be sturdy to hold up that much weight. I used scraps of polycarbonate greenhouse panel and egg crate light diffuser to create a sturdy platform, and then drilled more holes along the planter rim and zip tied the platform to it. I lined the basket with a garden weed fabric, and this is where our plants are going to go later. I gathered up some landscaping stones from my front yard. I cleaned them thoroughly and stacked them up on the platform to create the general structure of the waterfall. I used pieces of styrofoam to slightly tilt the stones forward to ensure that they shed water into the pond. Now, before laying the platform, I did notch out an opening in the back for the vinyl tubing and power cord for the water pump to go through. Next, all of the voids between the stones were filled with expanding foam, which is designed for building waterfalls. Now, this locks all the stones in place and creates a watertight seal and hides all of the plastic foundation. After letting the foam cure, I trimmed off all of the excess with a box knife and tried to blend the foam to the rocks as much as I could using a Dremel tool. Now, this step got really tedious, and it was hard to know when to stop and move on. And really, I'm not sure it was necessary because all this foam is going to get covered up anyway later. I selected a few crepe myrtle branches to resemble driftwood and attached them to the stones using expanding foam. And it did take some time to figure out the placement for these branches. But now it's really beginning to take shape. Oh, this is so exciting. Now, for the next step, we're going to conceal all of the foam using 100% silicone and a mixture of sand and peat. Smearing the silicone over the foam and using it as an adhesive, then sprinkling the sand and peat moss mixture onto the silicone and pressing it in. Now, this is another step that became tedious, but it was motivating to see how well it worked at blending the stones together and hiding all the foam. On the back side of the waterfall, I used the same method, except I used pea gravel and coconut fiber in addition to the sand and peat, and later trimmed the excess coconut fiber off. Turning my attention to the detail of the water flow, I siliconed smooth pebbles in strategic places to divert the water, making it spread out as much as possible over the face of the larger stones. And I also utilized these pebbles to try to give a sense of scale to the waterfall. Now, once this process was completed and the silicone cured, I set the pond outside in the rain and also used a garden hose to just wash off any loose material. After filling the pond with water, I noticed the edge of the planting basket was taller above the water level than was desirable. Now, this would be difficult to conceal, so I cut the top inch or so of this side of the basket off and simply lowered it down the inside edge and zip tied it back to the basket. Now, using this piece kept the top edge rigid and able to hold up once filled up with planting media. Well, here comes my favorite part, adding the plants. I fill the bottom half of the basket up with natural clay kitty litter, which makes an excellent aquatic planting media, and then added some red fluorite and a few fertilizer tabs. Now, starting with the largest plants first and working our way down to the smallest, I placed Japanese sweet flag on either side to frame the waterfall, and then planted a few clumps of dwarf mondo and chocolate chip ajuga to fill in around the base of the sweet flag. I filled in another few inches of clay kitty litter and then a layer of sand and pea gravel, which is going to help diffuse the water flow but also anchor the smaller plants. A few larger rocks were added to visually tie in the planting area to the waterfall, and at the base of the waterfall, lesser creeping rush was planted, and at the edge of the basket, Japanese dwarf pennywort, which will eventually grow out over the surface of the water. Well, I can't wait to get the waterfall going. I'm using a small 50-gallon per hour 3-watt water pump, but before turning it on, I add a piece of foam filter over the intake to filter out any debris and run the cord out of the back of that notch that we cut out earlier. I plug it in and watch the water flow. Well, I'm happy so far. This is so rewarding. Well, now let's add the moss. This Java moss is used in the crevices of the waterfall, and it helps extend the water flow outward a little bit by wicking the moisture out over the surface of the rocks for the other mosses to use. Then, using super glue, sheet moss, which was collected from my yard, is attached to various surfaces of the stones, and we can even use it to cover up the expanding foam. I'm not sure if all of the sheet moss is going to take, but it has plenty of opportunities to get a good start. Well, now let's add some guppy grass and a few floating plants like salvinia, Amazon frogbit, and some duckweed. Now, the water is cloudy right now, but it will clear up in a few days. I am so excited with how this turned out, and I can't wait to see these plants fill in, and we're eventually going to add some rice fish in a few weeks, and they're going to be the perfect size fish for this patio pond. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please leave any questions or comments down below. Let me know what you think about this project. And if you want to build a patio pond like this, check out the list of plants and materials that I used down in the description.